I always say to my clients, it's not just about posting, there's so much more around it. And actually, the purpose of social media is actually to take it off social media. And I think a lot of people actually forget that that is the overall aim, to take relationships off screens and off those platforms and develop them into either clients or business opportunities. That's where you nurture it, but it grows somewhere else.
On social media, they are, as everybody calls it, your rented audience. They don't belong to you necessarily. What might be boring legal niches.
I can tell you right now, it's not the niche that's boring, it's often the people. And I'll tell you why. I actually don't think lawyers are boring. I think they're some of the most fascinating and interesting people that we can come across. They have all the stories and they have all the content, they have all the knowledge. It's just getting that across into content that the social media platforms want. That's what's difficult. And that's where a lot of the blockers come from. I speak to law firms and they say, well, our in-house marketing people are just like mini lawyers. They're just like another legal department because they become institutionalized because they've been around lawyers for so long. They start to think like them, they start to look like them, they start to dress like them, and then suddenly the creativity is kind of lost. That spark is lost. We try not to lose that spark. I mean, it's hard, and I still have a lawyer's head. I still very much think like a lawyer a lot of the time. I don't think the niche is boring. I think there are challenges around who your target audience is. The one thing that I say to lawyers is, look, why do you want to use social media? When we have consultations, a lot of the time people are very, very confused. They're not actually sure what we can maybe help with, or why they should be on social media. They've just maybe heard it's like a new thing, or they need to consider it, or their competitors are doing it, but they need to understand like what benefit is going to bring to their organization. There's a whole host of things that social media can help with that isn't just about finding new clients, but it can certainly help with that. No boring niche, unfortunately, just some boring people sometimes.
What kind of reaction do you get from law firms when you mention TikTok?
The problem that I face the most is that a lot of people that I speak to, the more senior partners, the managing partners, the directors of law firms, they don't know the platform. So you have a different type of business owner that you speak to a lot of the time. They haven't grown up with that social media kind of being part of their lives as much. When I speak to younger, what I call them as a next generation of law firm owner, so somebody in their 30s, maybe early 40s, selling them TikTok or the idea of TikTok is far easier than somebody who has never sort of had any engagement with the platform. I think it's just about following the data and the numbers, and TikTok just has that reach. When you look at the figures, I can say that TikTok is the platform that is where most people are spending a lot of their time. And if people are who you're after, like private clients, then I definitely consider that. The responses from law firms are mixed. Their biggest concern is the video, is how do you get the video? What type of content do you do? And I always give a few examples. If anybody's ever seen the Legal Queen on there, family and divorce lawyer, 500,000 followers, absolutely smashing it on that platform. There's a lot that goes on into her videos, but she just answers the most common questions that she gets on camera. It's super simple, super straightforward.
Any kind of marketing, and I always bang on about this as well, it's obviously about the awareness piece, but then it's about the trust and the confidence. To get people to trust your business and your services, you need to somehow convey that message to them, and video is so impactful to do that. So whether you're doing it via video on LinkedIn or whether you're doing it on TikTok, if you can answer those questions, which comes back to knowing your audience that they're asking you in a really reassuring way, then you will get more leads. It's just as simple as that.
There's only so many ways that a law firm can generate leads, but the way law firms are now undertaking business development, it is changing. I'm seeing bigger firms now, having a unified approach to LinkedIn, where you can see that everybody has a profile picture with a similar colors. They have banners. You can see that more people are posting from the business. So you can see that internally they've got to push. I've got to serve some hard truths a lot of the time. And I say, look, nobody's going to want to follow your housing disrepair law firm on Instagram or a LinkedIn page. Nobody's sitting around thinking, oh, we should follow this law firm. They're just not. I think we forget why people actually go on social media a lot of the time. It's to escape reality. It's to actually not think about work. It's not to think about everyday life. So how can you as a legal service provider cut through that noise? And by the way, there's no answer to this. The best marketing people in the world don't have an answer to this. The answer that I do have is it's about raising brand awareness, but not in a salesy way. TikTok says make TikToks, not ads. Social media, there's a lot of brand building around it, where if you're giving somebody knowledge and you're sharing your expertise, but you're doing it in an interesting way, way, people will follow that account and they will engage in it. And at some point, they might need to recommend your services, or they might need to use your services themselves. It's worth remembering that as solicitors, we're technically distress purchases. And I heard that once and I thought, wow, that's true. Like nobody's sitting
Yeah.
about like thinking, oh, like let me chat to a solicitor, or let me just see. Like it's very, very rare to be doing that. So
Yeah.
we are a distress purchase. It's worth remembering that when we do kind of create content around that. I always say to them, you're thinking of starting a law firm. Okay, fantastic. Who are you going to target? Let's say it's personal injury. Do your neighbors know what you do? And a lot of people will say, oh, actually, no, they don't. I'm like, but why not? Start small, start in your local area.
Yeah.
I had claims from my neighbors. You want people to know that, because a digital presence is just one part of it. So the other thing that I have is law firms assume that social media will be the silver bullet. They've exhausted all their other options. PPC is super expensive. Depending on what area of law you're in, you might be relying on claims management companies to be recommending you to their clients. You might be relying on other marketing methods, other lead generation methods. A lot of them are exhausted. And then we've kind of got this next generation of legal service user who are turning 18. With TikTok, 80% of the users are between 16 and 34. That is changing though. And law firms now need to think about how do they target maybe the people that are maybe first time having accidents. I speak to young people all the time. They don't even realize they can make a claim after a certain scenario. They haven't really grown up with cold calling or
Yeah.
seen the
Yeah.
adverts on TV. They spend most of the time in TikTok.
And you've got to go where your audience are. That is the number one here.
This is one of the toughest things that we have to do. We have to understand, like, what are they worried about? What are their
Mm-hmm.
concerns? How are we helping them? How are we solving their problems? They don't want to be in a position where they need a lawyer. Like, they simply don't. I don't, and I'm a lawyer, and I would never want to instruct myself. I always just say to my clients, I hope you never need me, but if you do, like, I'm here. And they'd always have a little laugh. But that interaction was always tinged with sadness, because your client doesn't
Yeah.
want to be there. They don't want to speak to you. They don't want to deal with you. They don't want to be injured. They don't want to be going through a divorce. And that's what's important. It's important to play on emotion if you want your content to cut through.